Good evening, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, April 17th. We're here for the Board of Finance regular meeting. Our agenda, we're going to begin with, is there any public comment?
No.
Thank you. And the person who is going to be presenting?
Yeah, he called and he said that he should be on time, but if he's a few minutes late, he apologizes. He got some traffic.
Well, why don't we just jump right in then with your report?
Sure, certainly.
Item number 3. Everybody's okay with that? Yeah.
Sure.
So I have your report through March, and that's a year-end surplus of a little under $400,000. And with our allocation from fund balance of $800,000, we should have a fund balance at the end of the year of about $8.6 million, or just under 15% of our annual expenditures. We have interest income is projected to generate a surplus about $250,000. We have a deficit in charge for services about a little over $200,000 from a combination of building permit fees and transfer station fees. Additionally, we will most likely experience a shortfall of $42,000 due to lost rental income from the Woodbridge Child Center. As you all know, the Child Center is no longer.
Yeah, they moved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they coming back? They just left temporarily, or they're gone?
Gone,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I know when, the centers having issues.
Yeah, no, they're gone.
Oh, okay.
The center building and building maintenance, there's a deficit of $151,000 for testing, cleanup, abatement, and professional services resulting from the asbestos matter in the center building.
Tony, I'm
There's a
sorry, just to
transfer
go back
request.
For a second to your
Sure,
point.
yeah.
And this was kind of the last thing that happened. It wasn't because of this set, but this was one of the issues that caused the center to close.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Tony,
Sorry.
the 40,000 is a prorated amount, right?
Correct, right.
So for next year's budget, we should,
There's a deficit.
About 70,000?
Yeah, or 70, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, next year, that's one of the items that you'll have to discuss after the hearing about adjusting.
Right.
thank you.
Yeah.
And go ahead, finish.
Yep. There's a surplus in building maintenance of about 14,000. I'm sorry, building official. The base management is a projected surplus of about $35,000. We have some surplus in MSW. And finally, Amity has returned, or we've reduced her payment, actually, a March payment of $352,967. We reduced the payment to Amity due to a surplus. And finally, retiree health care, primarily, we have about $20,000 surplus in benefits. So those are the highlights for the fiscal year.
Okay.
Questions? Concerns, issues? You want, anything you want to say about the Board of Education Finance Report, or is that just there
No,
for?
that's for your information.
Information,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Budget update.
So I have a couple of budget updates. Javier stole my thunder on one of them, which was the Child Center.
Sorry.
That's but it's just under $70,000. We have a minor item in the senior center, where there's a salary increase for an employee. That'd be about $4,000. We're sort of keeping an eye on our interest income and keeping an eye on our rates. So far, they've been holding pretty steady. So we'll just sort of play it up by ear. One of the benefits of having a strong fund balance is you could take some risk on some of this stuff, and see you have a little more flexibility on some of this. So that's an item. There'll also there's a transfer request later in the agenda for some temporary storage for the fire department for some of their equipment. So some of those expenses, the rent primarily, will extend into the new year. So that's another item that you'll have to discuss. And the last one is
Is that because the shed isn't
correct. It's not
completed
completed,
yet,
right?
so they're hanging out,
Right.
but they're getting out of the, I guess, the old firehouse.
They have to
Correct.
vacate
They're in the
one.
process of moving right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're vacating, storing, and when they vacate, then the work can begin on the community building.
Okay.
And, and we have a $2 million grant for the community center building, which
Right.
is has to be spent by the end of this calendar year. So we're
Total
still under
Spent,
discount.
spent or encumbered?
No,
Yeah,
spent.
exactly.
Spent.
Really? Let's get
Wow.
cracking.
Wow, good.
They have started demolition on the,
They have, and they start framing too, Dwight? Did they start the framing on the second floor, do you know?
They've started some work on the second floor. We
Good.
gave them, there's no work going on, so what they did was they did demo on the second floor. They started framing for all the new doors and all up there,
Excellent.
so. but,
Thank
know,
you.
And then they're gonna start roughing for the electrical shortly up there.
The
Uh-huh.
the
All
last
the more
item-
reason that Beth has to stop calling it a shed.
We're not calling
I never said that. No, I named it when
Training,
we did the.
storage.
when we
Yeah.
did the-
Training.
it training and
Steep
storage
Storage
facility.
facility.
I named it when we did the steep grant, training and storage facility.
That's right, you did.
I wrote the steep grant with Tony and a couple other people, and we thought, you know what, let's just start with training, because that's something that will probably get us funded.
Right.
Yes.
And it did,
Worked.
and it did.
And it did.
You can call it a shed, though, if you'd like.
Oh, no, no thanks. I don't want to explain that.
Okay.
Not on me.
The last item I also wanted to mention was, so far, we have 61 adjusted accounts from the Board of Assessment Appeals, which is a reduced assessment of $1.78 million, or tax dollars is about $58,000. So that's 0.04 mils. So it's not that significant. I do know there are two, I think there are two, if you've seen Amika, two lawsuits
Yes.
as a result of reval. So
So that could
change, that
could result in additional.
And that means they've exhausted their remedy here at the Board of
Correct.
Assessment Appeals, and now they've gone to court.
That's
There we go.
correct.
So you said there's 61 adjustments that have resulted in 58,000
Correct.
reduction? Okay.
Yeah, $58,000 in
In
taxes.
taxes.
Yeah, in taxes, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask one more question
The
about
I'll
that.
tell you, the average assessment reduction is $29,274.
You saved me the math, thank you.
Okay.
And how many cases are still pending, if you know, in front of the Board of
Oh, no,
Assessment Appeals?
They've all been heard.
That's
They've
it.
all been heard.
These are the final numbers.
Okay. Okay, that's important to know.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not sure what the timing is in regards to additional lawsuits, but all the appeals have been heard at this point.
Okay.
Here's Andrew.
There's Andrew.
Okay, all right. Well, why don't you finish your budget update? Are you done?
That's it.
Okay. As long as we, Andrew, come on in. We're just gonna finish up one thing before we hear from you, okay?
Sure, where we got me?
As long as we're chatting
hot seat.
on item number 3, any additional comments on the fact sheet? Otherwise, it's gonna get posted tomorrow. We will have hard copies available for the
Right.
preliminary hearing.
Right?
You can give it to your friends and relatives and be an ambassador for the budget. Any other thoughts? I didn't hear from anybody, so,
I did not. I mean, I read it, as I said, before the meeting started, and it looked good.
okay. And the only suggestion that I had, Tony, I believe is incorporated, is just put the formula, how you calculate based on the assessed value with a proposed mill rate, because oftentimes people don't know the math. So we're okay? All right, let's formally vote on that. Let's make a motion that we accept the fact sheet for distribution to the town. Anybody second that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? This way we're on the record. It's good, okay.
That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's not Shakespeare. You know, it's basic. Anybody can look this stuff up, so we're all there.
It's
Okay.
arbitrary.
Anything else you want to add on agenda item number 3?
Nope, I'm all set. Thank
Well, in
you.
that case, let's welcome Andrew to our meeting. Do you want to?
Sure, yep. So Andrew works with the town at a firm called Fiduciant, who advises
How are you? Nice to
and
see you.
the investment committee for the OPEB dollars.
Thank you.
And for the 3 trust funds that we have, the library trust, there's the OPEB trust, there's the cemetery trust. And I would say probably a few years, 2-3 years or so ago, we included the Fiduciant advising us in investing a portion of our fund balance. Fund balance is approximately $8 to $9 million. So $3 million of it, the Fiduciant helped invest in CDs, certificates of deposit. We did well, and as those CDs start to come off and mature, we were discussed, and I was interested in sort of another approach besides just CDs, and So I'll let Andrew talk a little bit about that and, present our ideas on this.
Perfect. Yep. Good intro, Tony. Thank you very much, and good to be here this evening with all of you. We started working with the town of Woodbridge back in 2010, specifically on the OPEB. So there's been a long-standing relationship with the town. Like Tony mentioned a couple years ago, while we were in a higher interest rate environment, and we knew that rates were also at that time moving upward when the Fed was taking on this position to raise interest rates to combat inflation, if everybody remembers back in 2021 into 2022. Tony had the wherewithal and the foresight to say, all right, well, we have an opportunity to make some better interest now on these capital reserve funds. And so we embarked in a strategy of deploying a CD ladder where, Tony, you'll remember at the time we were
Yep.
getting somewhere between 5 and 5.5% in very safe, obviously, all FDIC insured money, right? So this was a really, really good strategy. We've now come into a cycle where the Fed, right, probably over the next couple of years, will be in a decreasing interest rate environment. And we've been really successful with deploying these capital reserve pool funds across a more diversified portfolio approach. So in other words, now it's probably not the best time to be an investor of CDs. Once your CD matures, you're likely rolling that balance into a lower interest rate, right? So right now you're getting good rate, 6, 9, 12 months, your cash comes up and all of a sudden the rate is lower. So we're finding a good opportunity in the marketplace to deploy across very safe fixed income, short duration vehicles, but also have the ability to tie in a little bit of equity market performance as well. This is all governed by state statute, by the way, so we have a lot of other municipalities that we deploy this type of program for. And so tonight I've got materials, obviously I just handed out to everybody. I know you have other items on the agenda. I promised Tony I'd only take about 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, and I
or
just
so.
want to also mention that we're not anticipating or expecting you to vote on anything tonight. This is just for your information, to ask questions, to think about, we could revisit at a later date.
Yep. So if everybody, so again, good long-standing relationship with the town. I've been a consultant on the relationship for a bunch of years as well, probably close to 10 years at this point. If everybody can flip open this deck that's got the municipality building on the front there, this town of Woodbridge, I'll just spend a minute or two here, and again, not covering every single slide because I'd take all night, so I know that we don't want to do that, but important to just lay the groundwork, make sure everyone knows who I am and who the firm is. If you flip to page 5, you'll just take a quick glance at the firm here. So, over $345 billion in assets that we advise on. We were founded here in Connecticut, Windsor, Connecticut. We've got offices now throughout the entire country, but a big chunk of our business, as you can imagine, is Connecticut, Massachusetts, and in the Northeast as well. So, over 200 plus employees now at the firm. When Tony first linked up with the firm and got to know us, I would imagine that number was probably 40 to 50 people. So it's been nice to see the track record of growing, not only obviously our assets and our business and doing a nice job for client portfolios, but then obviously hiring ahead of that growth too, so that we can continue to provide really good quality service. So that's a quick glance at a firm. If you look at page 6, the next slide there, just getting into, again, I know it's a capital reserve pool. We talk about defined benefit, really that becomes somewhat of a catch-all for a lot of our municipal business. And as you'll notice on this slide here, so we've got over $23 billion in assets for defined benefit plans. And you could take a look on the right-hand side of the page, all the different pools of assets that we advise on for those clients as well. Page 7 is probably a very interesting slide for all of you here. I mean, I'm born and raised in Connecticut. I live with my wife and kids in Wethersfield, so not too far. I apologize for being late, by the way. There was an accident on the Merritt. I've come down here like dozens of times. It takes me 40 minutes usually. It almost took double that tonight. I was feeling so bad that I was coming late.
Don't worry. As long as you're safe, that's what.
Yeah, no, totally. But I was like, oh my goodness. But page 7 is a really neat slide for this exact type of pool of assets that we're discussing tonight. And again, happy to answer questions once we get to the Q&A section. Probably about a dozen of these towns on slide 7, if you notice. We deploy a similar program where we're actually managing this capital reserve pool. A lot of these towns on the slide here, it might be like an OPEB or a strict DB plan. But for this capital reserve pool that's in question tonight, this $8 or $9 million that Tony's mentioning, probably about a dozen of these clients we're deploying a very similar program. And then just, again, closing up on our experience here, because we do have a lot of experience in this space. If you look at slide 8, right, it's a longstanding presence here. We're active in a lot of different associations here for Town of Connecticut. You look at that Connecticut Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA. I know Tony goes to some of those different, meetings that take place over the years. We've seen some folks from Fiduciant there. Connecticut Public Pension Forum, we're a founding member. Connecticut Council of Small Towns. So we're really, really active in the community and in this space, and we have a lot of experience there. We're frequently speaking at national and local conferences, and we're really trying to not only help address the problems or provide solutions for the capital reserve pools or the other accounts that we're managing, but then also trying to think outside the box with our clients too, to see, hey, do we need to restructure an investment policy statement? What does cash flow look like? Does there need to be additional liquidity? So the process is one that's certainly not like a set it and forget it process. We really can be nimble with all the different municipalities we work with, because we know that the town of Woodbridge needs and the concerns that you might have in order to help serve the town of Woodbridge could look different than those 50 plus towns that you saw on slide 7, right? So we just want to make sure that we're designing strategies that make sense, and even helping out. This is a great example where we shifted around $3 million, or Tony, I should say, did a couple years ago to take advantage of higher interest rates, and now we've got this pool of $3 million where we're looking to continue to be good shepherds of those assets there. So just really trying to make sure that we're providing good strategies surrounding that. These are all yours to keep, obviously, so you've got the handouts. I don't want to spend time on every slide because, again, be here for a long time, but I do want to get to, if we take a look, there's a lot of investment research that goes into constructing portfolios. So I would imagine those are slides that I think the group, can take a look at their own leisure. I'm happy to field questions tonight about structuring portfolios, and actually want to show you a portfolio that I have in the materials that's an actual town where we're doing this. So that's a real nice live example of how we would also construct town of Woodbridge. So starting with slide 11, in the subsequent slides from there, you really get a good sense of the amount of resources that go into us building out client portfolios. But if I can drive your attention to slide 16, this now would then become, the proposal for those assets that were dedicated towards a more CD ladder. So here's, a question always comes up. Obviously, you want to know about fees. And if we look at slide 16, you could take a look at all the different services that we're outlining for the town here, starting with establishing the objectives and policies, right up and down the ladder there. You could see all the bullets that we've listed here for the proposal for the town of Woodbridge. And then the annual retainer cost, this is, I would say, very much driven by a grandfathered in relationship with the town. If this was a brand new relationship, we wouldn't be coming in at this rate, but you could see we're quoting this pool of assets for the town of Woodbridge. Also understanding that we do manage the OPEB, and we have these other smaller accounts for the cemetery and the library, so we take all that into consideration. So this is at 0.2% would be the advisory fee for Fiduciant. So big question that always comes up is what are the fees for this? It would be 0.2%. That's charged, that's the yearly fee. So it'd really be 0.05%, right? 5 basis points quarterly.
Quarterly, yeah.
And that's how so you get to the 0.2% for the full year, but it's done via quarterly, so you break it up, if that makes sense.
Can I ask you just a quick question? It's probably buried in here somewhere, and I could look it up. But what is the Connecticut statute that governs the parameters of what you can and cannot invest in? Do you know it offhand?
Yes, well, there's actually a couple of them. It is in the materials.
It is in the materials, but don't
Yeah.
worry about it. Okay. I can look it up, that's fine.
That's okay, but we talk about it, so there's,
Chapter 108, Section
Yeah.
7, subsection
I
366.
know what I'm gonna read tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like fun.
did you just pull it up in the?
It's on the last page of this,
Oh, there
Yeah.
you go, okay.
this one.
Well, see, I didn't
thought you
skip,
knew that right off
I'm
the-
not skipping
Jeez,
ahead,
he's just-
Javier, I'm listening.
I thought
Yeah.
you knew that like right off the top, you just pulled that right.
That's pretty good.
I do. I'm just trying to be humble.
Yeah,
You're
and
so
even
good at that. I'm sorry, Andrew, pardon us, we're being
and state regs. Yeah,
frivolous.
no, it's fine. So this one, which is this sample investment policy, which actually is an investment policy from a different we can't put the name. That's why it says Town of Connecticut. So we're having to be a little sensitive or confidentiality. But Susan, that first paragraph actually on this investment policy statement goes through.
Okay,
and
as
you
long
can-
as it's in here
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah, thank you.
So I guess to wrap up on the fee component, let's just use super easy math, right? For me, let's just say our our gross investment portfolio earns 7% for the year. You'd be getting 6.8%, right? That's where that 0.2% comes off. So the net to you would end up being post
6.8.
exactly, right? And our goal then is, a lot more, your assets prior to the CD ladder that was deployed. Tony knows you've got these capital reserve dollars just allocated to STIF. It's an uber conservative setup, which is fine. We think that this strategy that we're suggesting complements that well. And again, it's also very, very conservative in nature. But our mandate, our goal would be to outpace that type of program over multiple different market cycles, if that makes sense. So on the fee perspective, if again folks understand it's a gross portfolio 7, but you'd see 6.8 fiducian for all of our management putting together a portfolio, providing investment performance reports, coming down, meeting with the group, rebalancing portfolio. That's all part of our advisory fee. And I would say too, this quoted fee, really if we're coming to a new municipality off the streets, we'd probably be more than double that right off the gates, just as an FYI, but we've had this relationship with the town for 15 years now, so we just understand that we want to keep our existing clients happy, and that's one of the reasons that we're able to continue to grow. So for us, it's not like it's charity work. It is somewhat self-serving, where we do get a lot of good referrals, and if we keep our existing clients happy, they continue to refer other business our way. But I was really, really happy. We do have a pricing committee that vets these opportunities, and I was part of that conversation, obviously. So I was really happy that this 0.2% was the number that came out.
And just to clarify for the group, that's your only source of income on the you don't make it.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. So we're a totally independent RIA firm, so we are not selling any of our own investment products. We don't make commissions along the way. So if we were to, for example, one day sell an investment in your portfolio and buy something else, there's no incentive for us to do that. We're not making commissions. This would just be the only advisory cost. It's just that fee. Yeah, correct. So the last couple pages I would say on this here, and I know I've knocking on the time here, but slide 17, you take a look at our core values. Aligned interest speaks exactly to that. Tony, actually, our number one core value is really just trying to sit on the same side of the table as our clients and understand that, hey, as their portfolios grow, then we can continue to do better, and we're not trying to sell products, which is really, really important. And then, of course, the last slide on 18 is just, giving thanks for the opportunity, of course. So if I could, Tony, do I have 2 more minutes maybe?
Sure, yeah.
Sure,
Yep.
go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So the investment policy statement, this one, the Word document that you've all got in front of you there, this is an actual, another municipality here in town of Connecticut. I will not, the state of Connecticut, town here not too far away from Woodbridge. And I would just suggest for folks, as you're trying to get a feel for this, again, I won't read through with you this evening, it would take too long, but it really goes through very thoroughly. We would construct something very similar to this for town of Woodbridge that would basically provide those objectives of how we're managing this portfolio. So it goes into the objectives, assignment of responsibilities. Obviously this pool
Andrew, is this something we have with you now, or is this something you're?
This is something that would be a new doc for this capital reserve pool. Yeah.
Okay.
We have a separate, for the OPEB, it's a good question. We do have a separate investment policy statement for the OPEB. It's a different portfolio approach. It takes on a little bit more risk because it's got that longer term nature to it.
Right.
But we would construct something similar to
To
this
this.
for this new pool. So we don't have one right now for the capital reserves.
Got it. Thank you.
Does that make sense, Susan?
It makes sense. I was just wondering, in that situation, the client is still the town of Woodbridge, not the town of Woodbridge Investment Committee or the town of Woodbridge Board of Finance. It's still the town of Woodbridge.
It would be Board of Finance oversees this technically this board here votes on this pool of.
This pool.
Exactly.
Just the way the investment committee votes on the other pool.
Yes.
Everybody in the pool.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Totally right.
Got it.
That's totally right. I'll point your attention to one thing, and then I want to get over to the actual performance report. That's another actual client that we've scrubbed the name and everything, but this will give you a good flavor for how we operate. Is on the back end of this investment policy statement. the last page actually. Again, some statutes there at the bottom, but really just talking about performance, not performance, target weightings and risk bands up and down the spectrum. So in general, if we looked at this, the target weight, if you took in this portfolio here for this IPS, target weight of 20% to cash and cash equivalents, and then we've got short dated fixed income, so there's 20, and then at the bottom is 70. That gets you to 90, and then the 10% equity allocation gets you to 100%. So in this portfolio, we are allocating about 10% to the equity markets, to the stock market, and that does allow for what we feel is, opportunistic returns over, different periods of market cycles. So you're able to outpace. Obviously, we know that the stock market has its ups and downs. We've certainly seen some volatility the last couple weeks. I'm sure that has not been lost on anybody
Nope.
In the room. However, over the long term, we do know that the types of returns that you can get from being an investor in the stock market can far outpace those that if you're just sitting in cash or sitting in a CD, right? So we want to make sure that we have a thoughtful approach to it. So we would come up with a very similar target asset allocation table like you see here at the back end of this IPS, which would be great. And then before Q&A, this last piece here, which you'll see, it says CT Muni Plan Reserve Portfolio. This is an actual, it's Q2 of 2024, so I had provided this to Tony a few months back when we were kind of going back and forth, and I wanted to give an idea of what this program would look like for Town of Woodbridge. So this is an actual legitimate client performance report on the front end. Susan and Gay are also, and Tony are familiar with, we do a lot of capital market, economic up front in the report. So these are just updates that are more typical to what's going on with capital markets. But if you flip forward to the pages, let's see, right after page 12 is the end of the equity market reviews. And then you'll see, and I don't know why this, I apologize, but starting after page 12 on 13, we've got page numbers on the bottom right were cut off the way this printed. But there's an asset allocation page there right after page 12, if everybody can see with me there.
Yep.
So you're actually taking a look at a legitimate portfolio. This particular client's got, $11.6 million, if you could see on the top left there. And then you could take a look between short-term liquidity, what we have there, a couple $1 million, $8 million, a little over $8 million towards dedicated fixed income managers. And then we did allocate across domestic equity markets via Vanguard. And what I point out, what I think is really important for this group to understand too, if you look at asset allocation versus targets, and then that differences percentage, which is the furthest column over to the right, there are super minor variances there with the differences, and this is really because it's an active program. So if we have a situation like the last couple weeks where the stock market has dipped down, right? I mean, I know it's hard to do that sometimes and think this way, but that's an opportunity to move in, right? You want to kind of, the cliche is buy low, sell high. Easier said than done, but when you have it in a formula and there's a program in place, you can take advantage of those opportunities. So you would never see for a Woodbridge managed cap reserve pool where these variances will be like way out of whack, because we're constantly looking to rebalance the portfolio. If the market's riding high, we take some chips off the table, put it back into cash, fixed income, protect it. Markets are low, buy in at that point. That's how we feel like we can really manage a really, really nice program. What did I miss, Tony?
I think you pretty much covered
Okay.
what we discussed.
So just to bring Donovan up to speed, we're not going to vote on anything tonight. This is just for us to ask questions and hear from Andrew. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
Page 16,
Mm-hmm.
2.2% of total assets, right? That's,
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and actually, so it's a good question, and the actual dollars that were shifted over to this CD ladder that we talked about, Donovan, before you came, there was a portion of this capital reserve pool that we were, Tony was really leveraging a CD ladder approach, but now in a decreasing interest rate environment, we feel like it's not prudent to continue on that path. There's about, out of the $9 million, there's about a $3 million pool right now that was deployed across this CD ladder. So in real terms, if we took that $3 million and deployed a program like I've described tonight, you take 0.2% on $3 million, $6,000 per year if we want to actually do like hard dollar terms. and that would be, it's done across quarterly. I think you missed that part too. So it's charged quarterly. So it'd be about $1,500 per quarter.
So total assets mean at fair value?
Excuse me?
Total assets at fair value?
At fair market value at quarter end, right? So we just passed March 31st was the end of the first quarter. We would take a snapshot of your portfolio and say, here's the balance, and then you would take 0.05% on that balance.
Yeah.
And each quarter you get there, so that at the end of the full year, you've done the 0.2%.
Gotcha.
Right.
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a question. With your other municipal clients, how often do you actually talk to them? Like, are you making presentations once a year for everybody, twice a year, or you're
It's
only
a
dealing with
great
the
question.
finance office, or how do we check in with that?
Yep, so typically the cadence is you get standard quarterly performance reports and updates on benchmarks and how the actual account is doing. So that's obviously, the reports are sent out quarterly. I would continue to be the consultant here like I've done for the OPEB account, so I'd be the main point of contact. I'd be happy, like we try to, as Gay knows, we try to do quarterly for the OPEB portfolio. So I'd be happy to continue on and do that same cadence for this account here. But I do know sometimes it's trickier with summer months. There might not, it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah,
but
so
typically it's quarterly.
it sounds like the quarterly report would then become part of our Board of Finance budget package, is what it sounds like to me.
Part of your Board of Finance package, correct?
Part of the Board of Finance package.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So we'd always know
Yeah.
What it is.
what it is.
Right.
Exactly.
Always have a running
Right.
update.
Right, and we really truly believe, and it's, again, we've got a lot of towns in Connecticut that we work with, over 50 towns now, where, this approach provides a nice complement. You've got a really diversified strategy, so you're not just stuck in one asset class. This capital reserve pool should have a growth element to it, right? I mean, it'd be good to just know that you're, have monies that's actually earning, and you're able to continue to keep up with things like inflation and cost of services.
Well, it's getting more complicated, isn't it? As we've,
Totally.
it's not like, just
Yeah.
let's put it in a passbook account. You can't do it that way.
Can't do it
Yeah,
anymore. Yep. Yeah, so I think that, sorry, long-winded answer, Susan. I would say quarterly. You'd be definitely getting your quarterly reports for sure.
Right.
If there's a need for a one-off ad hoc meeting or something like that, that's fine. I'm always able to, I would be the main point of contact, so I could be here in person. I could Zoom in, I can call in.
Okay.
But I would say the answer is probably quarterly.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Other questions? Thoughts, concerns?
What's the name of the portfolio, the strategy? Is it CT Muni Plan Reserve? Is that it?
Yeah, well, that's kind of just what we use for this template because it's an actual report, so we're kind of scrubbing out. But it would be like the town of Woodbridge capital.
Yeah,
Reserve.
the only reason I ask is there's a performance page in here, right?
Yes.
So on the performance page, it lays out, quarter, year-to-date
Yep.
returns. I notice at the bottom, it says that the performance is presented net of underlying manager fees, but gross of your fees. So I know you mentioned we're at 20 bips for your fees, right?
Yep.
What other fees are we incurring as part of the portfolios that we're buying into?
Totally. This account does not have the same relationship for fees that yours does. They just like an annual retainer cost, so it's not a percentage. So that's a discrepancy there. Then the additional fees are just the underlying fund fees. So if we're deploying like a Vanguard all stock index fund, and let's say the Vanguard fund is 0.02% to own that fund through Vanguard, the underlying manager fees, those are just the actual Vanguard. There's a great fund in here, Payden fixed income vehicle fund. So like Payden's actual expense ratio, that's paid through. But that would show completely net. It would be net on yours.
Now, those funds, is that in the equity portion of the proposal, or is it?
And fixed income too.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we use funds for fixed income as well?
Yep. And those funds are
Okay.
depending on if they're buying treasuries, right? Or if they're, obviously buying agencies, depending on the type of fixed income fund that you're investing in, they're all owning the individual bonds under the hood as well. So if there's, a lot of times committees might have questions on like, hey, we own this particular fund. Can you open up and explain to the group like what types of actual individual paper is held within the fund? And that's all public information, but that's all disclosed as well.
So right now, this is CDs.
We have correct. We have this investment is in CDs.
Laddered.
It's laddered. We also have investments in the state treasurer's short-term investment fund, which you can clearly go online. You can see their returns. They have a lot of information on the state treasurer's website.
Right.
We have funds invested in money market and short-term vehicles at the bank, so I could like sweep in and out quickly.
Right.
Those are the primary investments.
How's the equity portion invested?
Well, I think since it's such a small portion, 10%, like in this client portfolio, you're looking at, a really small allocation. It's too hard to be diversified with such a small percentage and own a lot of different parts of the market. So we would just kind of do more of a catch-all, like the Vanguard Total Stock Fund that is in this portfolio is a great example of how we would get that, benefit from that exposure. And you can see that there too, right? So about $1.2 million of this portfolio is in this Vanguard Total Stock Market Index.
That's through an index fund then?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I would say in general, the environment's been more favorable to be passive in owning indexes for U.S. equity markets over the last, 3, 5, 10 years. Does that mean that we would always choose to use index funds for equity allocation? Maybe not. There might be a good, strong case to say, hey, in this environment, maybe we want to be active like large cap, or we want to be a little bit more selective, so we could do that. But we also recognize as well that there's additional costs for that too. Like the Vanguard indexing for domestic equity, you're getting the benefit of having that all stock market exposure for a very low cost. Once you start to select active managers, then obviously there's different expense ratios that are associated with that. But in general, the portfolio is meant to be, I would say, super lean and mean and low on expense ratios, clearly low on the actual advisory fees at 0.2% that Fiducian would charge on it. And then really just trying to outpace what you're getting from STIF, have this be a pool of assets that you feel comfortable knowing that you've diversified it out, it complements what you're already doing, and really try to have a nice element of growth, over time.
How has it performed over the volatile points that we've
You could
had
actually
over,
see,
say,
yeah.
20 years?
Yep, you could take a look here. So we've got,
page is that?
I was gonna ask for you today. You're being nicer.
oh yeah, I know.
Right.
I can get back, Tony, I'll get back to you on year to date because it's a good question. This one obviously is a report that I provided Tony a few months back. So if you look at, if you're looking at like performance overview, for example, sorry, that's I don't know why the page numbers, I apologize. Performance overview, it's right after the portfolio dashboard. There's a slide that looks like this with the pie chart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then the page right after that.
got it.
So, is it Micah or Mika?
Mika.
Mika. So, to answer your question directly here, if you look at that performance overview page, you could really take a look at how, portfolio has presented itself and what performance has been. Again, this is now coming off of, 2023 and the 2024 returns.
Yeah.
I was
So-
thinking more along the lines of when there's been volatility akin to what we're experiencing now.
Yeah.
Just in terms of how it's
Totally.
performed.
Yeah, 2022 was a weird year because bond markets also moved lower along with equities. Like typically you have a situation where when the stock market's selling off, bond markets go up. So that was, that's definitely different environment in 2022. I would say because you're going to have that additional, call it 10% roughly to equity exposure. If markets are volatile and turbulent, this portfolio will feel that slightly, but also then on the upside when markets are performing well, then you're capturing that return. But I can get you. We can definitely follow up, Tony and Gay. I can get the year-to-date performance on this. That'll give you a good
That'd be great.
idea of how we're doing.
And I have one more question. Structurally, if we decide to do this, I think I know the answer, but presumably this is an at-will relationship. In other words, come 6 months from now, if we
Right.
say this is not working for us,
Yep.
we could just walk away.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And there is, I would say, so there's, because it's a different committee, Susan, there is a termination clause in the consulting agreement. I think that it's a 30-day notice on the termination clause, but we can work through some of that.
I
It's like
gotcha.
just official
Yeah,
contract
yeah.
language. But yes, this does not mean that if you're signing up for this program, you're in it for the next 5 years or
Right.
something like that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Other thoughts, questions?
Or to Tony. Tony, you've been doing this for quite some time for us. and
Right.
Andrew is here in front of us because you have confidence in what.
Correct, and they've done an excellent job with our other investments, and I like the idea of diversifying this portion of the portfolio. because all of our other funds are in, you know, the same type of investment. So, it's, and I know a lot of other towns that are sort of doing a similar approach to a portion of their portfolios.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
Thank you,
Okay,
Andrew.
we will
Okay.
take this up
Thank
shortly.
you very much.
Thank you.
Drive safely.
Thank you.
Be careful out there.
Well, I don't have a meeting on the other side of this, so I don't have to worry about getting here and getting back.
Don't rush.
Yeah,
Don't
no rush at all.
Just stay home.
Thank you so much for coming.
It's a
and
pleasure
sharing
seeing
this with
everybody,
us.
and if there's any follow-up questions, I'm sure Gay and Tony can.
Yeah,
I will get year-to-date
Sounds
information
good.
for the group, so we can circulate that.
thank you. That's very
And if there's
helpful.
any other follow-ups, just let me know, and I'm happy to address those too.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, my pleasure, and sorry if I took too long, but this
No,
is
no, no,
important
not at
stuff.
all. This is
It
important.
is.
So,
This is important.
So just extending the conversation before we move on, in terms of process for this, is there a particular process we're following? I see in the, in that the sample that we have, there's a lot of involvement on some of the different, including Board of Selectmen.
So we would have to do a little bit of a deeper dive into our own sort of charter and our own,
Charter,
yeah.
and get town council's advice as to
Got it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happy Easter.
Thank you, Andrew.
Celebrate, yeah,
I
nice to see
think
you
the
all.
bottom line is we don't know.
Right.
What we would have to find out.
Yep.
And it's an important question. Okay. Thank you for bringing that to us.
Okay.
Because it gives us an opportunity.
Something to think about.
Something to really think about, and we're in a kind of a crazy time, and we gotta take it off Tony's desk, frankly. I mean, that's part of it. Okay, I think we are on to funding requests, if I'm not mistaken. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve line item transfer 2425-31 in the amount of $10,151.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
You want to tell us anything about this?
Certainly, this is to use grant funds to update the Selectmen's conference room with a display and video conferencing and other items to allow for a more pleasant experience when we have meetings, and you can have online meetings and
So these
virtual
are,
meetings.
this is grant money, it's already spent, you're going to transfer from one account to the other.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? Any abstentions? Good. I'll entertain a motion to approve funding request 2425-32 in the amount of $20,050. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anything you want to say about this?
This is what we talked about.
We talked about this
Yeah.
earlier, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the
This is for
moving.
so the fire department can move the equipment that's currently in the former firehouse so that we can start the project for the community center. And they're moving into an off-site location. And so this is for rent through June 30th, plus there's some equipment that they have to buy in order to store some of the equipment there, some shelving, and so that's what this is for.
And this moving it'll be safe in terms of they can get to the stuff to respond, because the stuff that's in the fire ship, the old
That's fine.
firehouse right now.
Or Sean, we already went
They
through
got it
everything.
under
Yeah, they got it
control.
under
Okay.
control.
So it's accessible.
It's
Yeah.
accessible.
You know, when.
They're gonna put the hose in a certain place in the store, so if they ever need it, they can get to it. It's lockable, but they will have a key to the access to the storage facility.
Hopefully they
question.
won't need it.
Well, that's the key.
Right, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions on that?
Where is it? It's in Bethany?
In Bethany.
Yes, Bethany.
Is that,
Yeah.
is that close enough?
Yeah, it's fine.
I trust them, they know what they're
Well,
doing.
we
We
told them to check to see if we could use your garage, but they said no. No, it's your fault, Donna.
Just for the,
Keep an eye on your yard.
It wasn't really big enough. There wasn't.
Some storage trailers being dropped off tonight in your
I
yard.
mean, you know. that's
All
not
of a sudden,
enough.
Bethany's very close, isn't it?
It's okay with me.
Oh, yeah,
Just for-
Bethany, no problem.
for the record, though, we did look at opportunities here in Woodbridge first to determine if there was anything that would work, and there just was not. So,
Yeah,
Hopefully it'll be, all happen quickly. so,
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right,
Or they won't need it at all, which is the best.
which is even
No
better.
fires.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed, any abstentions? Okay. I will entertain a motion for approval of line item transfer 2425-33 in the amount of $3,000. I think that's your motion, sir.
I will make that motion.
Okay, and I think Beth will second
I'm
this.
happy to
There you go. Anything you want to say about
That's
this, Tony?
wonderful.
Nope, we just, this
This
is,
is our annual
yep.
check that we give to the town to help with overtime and whatever it is, to help with the expenses that the guys need for overtime or whatever, Parks Department, so.
I'd
And
just
we
like to com-
appreciate it.
And I'd like to comment how we appreciate the fact that you actually have done that for many,
We've done it
many,
for
many years.
Many
Since I was
And-
born.
Yes.
We've been doing it for a number of years, but it's a great relationship, so we have
Definitely.
a great relationship, so.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
That's the important thing. All in favor? Anyone opposed? No abstentions. Okay. And I think we have one more, yes? Yes, I need a motion to approve line item transfer 2425-34 in the amount of $151,500. Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
So moved, second?
Second.
Second.
So, I'll go into a little more detail on this.
Yeah.
So this is for our expenses related to the asbestos matter at the center building at the police station. And so there's a spreadsheet which highlights the nature of the expenditures, including $10,835. That's for the environmental professional to do initial testing. We had expenditures in testing services to actually perform the testing that we did early on. And then we hired Fuss & O'Neill as an environmental consultant that does a lot of asbestos consulting, and they are helping us to oversee this project, and they're helping us to develop a building maintenance and operations manual, which will then identify all the asbestos in the building and methods to address that asbestos. And then the town would have to make a decision as to how we want to address it. As an example, if there's an area with a hole in the ceiling and there's asbestos above that, you can take the asbestos out, you can cover it with a piece of plywood, right? Those are two ways to address the matter. So they're gonna identify all the asbestos, and then what should, what are ways that we can remediate it, and then that's part of that. And
And now those costs aren't included in.
those aren't in here. That's the only thing that's not
Those
in
are
here.
just, yeah, so
Yeah.
anything over and above, whatever they find, whatever we have to remediate or whatever it is, they'll be additional to this.
Correct. The Has Pro in there is doing some initial cleanup. They did the cleaning of the police, couple of locations in the police department, the senior center, and they also abated some areas already, including there's a pipe in the hallway in the police department. There is
Yeah.
some piping in the basement of the building. There's a floor in the police department and a bathroom. And there's a couple of rooms at where there was some damage on one of the, I don't know if you remember, two of the rooms on the main level had some damage, so, which was asbestos related. So that's part of the initial abatement, is part of that $63,000.
Do we know how high this could go, or should I not ask that question?
Well, one of the items for, that would be subject to possible abatement is the child center. And there's a flooring in the child center that we applied for a steep grant to hopefully address that.
Okay.
So that's
Good.
that's to finish what we didn't finish for the gym, and also abate those rooms. So hopefully we receive that grant.
Okay.
In
But it
terms
could-
of, I'm sorry, Miko.
No, I was just gonna say, it could still be substantial,
But it could-
which is the reason we're looking at this, because what needs to be done is probably more extensive than what we've already done, to give you, just for perspective's sake. Sorry.
In terms of asbestos identification, is this the same firm that we have used or are using at Beecher?
Yes,
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
yes. It's
Oh,
important to mention, go on.
No, I was going to ask, is there any coordination? Are we leveraging any kind of like efficiencies of scale
Right,
since we're already using them for those building projects? Or is it just a new contract, new? New purchase.
We attempted, it's a new contract. Got it. It's a new contract. It's not significant enough. They do on each of their contract, do on a regular basis. It's, they've got to stay up to state standards. There are very specific standards that don't exist here, so it is a little bit different. We don't have the same criteria that Beecher has to meet, so that is a separate type of contract. It also bears mentioning that in addition to the groups that we work with here, we also work with the Connecticut Department of Health, QVHD, and others, and OSHA. OSHA came back and cited us for two things in particular. One was the lack of having the documentation that specifies where it is, where the locations are, what you have, where it is, etc. Fuss and O'Neill is caring for that.
That's
part
the
of their
manual that they're putting together, right?
Yeah, so that'll take care of that. And the other thing is training for the people who have access to or may be working with areas that there's asbestos. So if there's asbestos on a wall and you go to hang a TV on it, there's things you need to know in order to do that. So the training, they have to attend the training, which will be done in May. Both of those were already in progress when we were cited by OSHA, but we were cited nonetheless because that's what they do. And there was a very small citation fee that goes along with that. But that's all being cared for and addressed at this point.
And for clarification, this is not friable asbestos floating through the air. We're
No.
talking about solid contained content of materials, correct?
Correct. And in virtually every instance, there is asbestos there. It's an old building.
It's an old
There is
building.
asbestos. So, and that's what all the professionals have indicated to us, but there's nothing to make it unsafe. At this point in time, what we're doing at this point is really to make sure it never gets to the point where it is unsafe.
That's what the
And-
remediation really
And
is
the,
about.
and
So,
the
yeah.
That's
covering,
correct, yeah.
encapsulation, remediation, and things of that nature, is to make sure it doesn't get to that point. So
Because once
the
you
only
start
reason we
opening
haven't.
ceilings, you don't know what you're gonna find up there.
Right.
You
Right.
could
True.
have
Correct.
a pipe, you could have glue that attached something that was, whatever it is, you have to be very careful, that's all.
So we're providing the opportunity for them to do the necessary evaluations and testing, not testing of asbestos, but where there could be things. And we're also waiting a little bit to see if we get the steep grant and we can fund it in that way. So that's the reason that portion is still not being used. It's accessible. We'll be working with the Child Center for them to come collect their stuff, things of that nature, but it's,
And I've asked this question before, but just for the record, I want to ask it again. There's no insurance potential here.
There is not.
On our part. Okay.
No.
I just think that's important to understand.
The other thing I just want to mention is we're going to take this opportunity to also have a plan done for, if you look at all of our other facilities, most of them are new and therefore would not have asbestos except for this facility.
Right.
So we're going to have one done for this facility also, just so we know, we can identify where all the asbestos is, if there is any. I'm sure there is.
Proactively.
Proactive,
Okay.
correct.
I'm glad Susan brought that point up, because in my mind, I was thinking, we don't want to open ourselves up to any liability.
No, this is what old buildings are, and, Dwight knows better than anybody. I mean, you have to, it's not open surgery, it's laparoscopic surgery. You gotta be very careful about what you do so that you don't expose, kind of a thing.
It's just like if we were gonna renovate the center building, we were gonna start opening walls and all that. You don't know what's inside those walls. And that's,
So there's a procedure.
And that's why you need a healthy contingency when you
Absolutely.
have a building that's 100 years old.
Right.
You
Yeah.
don't know what's there.
right.
So you have to be very careful as you do that, so.
So let's see if we're approving this.
Thank you for
All-
that detail, by the way.
Yeah. All in favor? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes. Okay. I think that's the last of the funding requests. Moving on to agenda item number 5. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting, minutes dated March 20, 2025?
So moved.
All right.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion, corrections, additions?
They were
All
great.
in favor?
All right.
Any objections? No abstentions. Okay, good. First selectmen's report.
A couple of things that I'll bring up as related to our recent activity. First of all, there was a motion to call the annual meeting for May 19th, Monday, May 19th. There will be an additional, additional agenda item on there besides the budget, which is normally done on a special meeting, a special town meeting basis, and it's for approval of a lease for solar at our country club on the landfill portion of our country club. So we do need that. It does take 100 people to vote on this, so we're hoping we get a good turnout as far as that's concerned.
That's the annual town meeting.
This is on the May
Not
19th
next
meeting.
week.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Correct. And that has to go on there because it is a long-term lease that we're looking for, and that has to be approved in a town meeting environment.
If we don't have quorum there, what happens? Do we know?
Try it again.
Okay.
Another special town meeting where we try to get a quorum.
Tell your friends.
Exactly. In case you're not familiar with it, we will be putting information out on the website for the public and for everyone. But it's up to about $80,000 annually in terms of what we're looking to collect as part of that land lease. And it is a land lease. This is not solar power for our generation, for our use, or for use of people in that neighborhood. This is.
We're selling the power.
They're selling.
They're selling the power.
And they're using our land to generate
So
it.
this is a lease, we're not spending any money. It's a lease
Correct.
agreement,
Correct.
and then we will get money should it be approved.
Correct. There's
Okay.
no investment on our,
Got it.
no
There's no
dollar
finance,
investment on.
Board of Finance approval for
Correct.
spending. Got it,
Mhm.
okay.
Do we have a layout of how that's gonna look like
That'll
with
be on the
that field?
website. Yes, we do. But we don't, I don't have it
Just,
now.
I'm just curious, because thing is, the ball fields are right there too, and I
Yeah.
just wanna make sure I make everybody aware, because balls do go, they get hit into that field so occasionally, so I just wanted to.
So we'll have officers there to ticket the individuals who hit the balls. That's not a problem.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
And then they're gonna sign them up for the Yankees.
300-pound home run ball, yeah.
Right on, give them a contract.
Okay.
Just
No,
sell
that's fine.
popcorn
I
in the
was just
solar
curious,
field.
that's all.
That's what I.
Yeah, no, we will have it, Dwight, and my understanding is that it'll be a shot. It would be a shot to get it there on a foul ball,
That's why
but
they sign
we'll
them
make
up for
sure.
the
No, that's
Yankees
fine, no,
that
no,
way.
I was just curious, that's
Yep.
all. Okay, good, thank you.
We also held a public hearing to consider for the public to provide us input in regards to new ordinance to change our housing committee to a housing commission. The board, after hearing public comment and after discussing it amongst ourselves, we opted that we would hold off and look at making some additional changes to the actual content or the wording, the language as far as the ordinance is concerned. So that'll be worked on as we move forward. Just wanted to let you know that the town sidewalks will be started as soon as school is out, so mid-June. So that's something that I know
Holy.
we've had on the books.
Yes, how many
So
years?
for quite some time.
Oh, my gosh.
A long time.
And
When
so
are they
that's,
starting?
they're starting, I think, the 16th of June, but it's like within a day or
It's
two
that Monday
Doing a
after the
drive-by.
last day of school.
Oh, that's
Now,
wonderful.
keeping in mind from a public standpoint, if your friends should ask, but if people should ask you about it, there is going to be, because they're doing some drainage work, so there's going to be road work actually required, which is the reason we waited until after school was
Right.
done,
Good-
as
good
opposed to
move.
while school was there, so we have less buses and less traffic in that area. And they hope to have it completed by September, so that.
Yeah, there's a contractual, they don't have to complete it by a certain, I think it's, it's August. Like the
Will that
18th or
impact
something.
concerts on the green and things like that, maybe?
I'm sorry?
Will that impact concerts on the green in July?
From a traffic standpoint, if we started in June, possibly Beth, just in
Yeah.
terms of it won't in the sense of, we talked about it because in the sense of when the concerts start, for the most part, construction stops.
Right.
But the road will be, it may,
Plus they're putting in new light poles and they're fixing out in front here.
right,
Oh,
right. And the new light poles, we've
This is
opted to,
wonderful.
we're looking at opting to do the ones that don't light pollute,
Mhm.
so,
That's great.
that's great.
So we're I don't know if there's any other questions in regard to the center building. I think we talked about that enough. And we did have another update in regard to the CCW master plan. The Board of Selectmen has opted to have a special meeting specific to this topic and this topic only. Since when we have more than one topic, like this meeting, it takes us, we take it too deep into the night.
Yeah.
But One thing that, I'll communicate on this is that there does seem to be some misconception in terms of where we are and what we're trying to do. What we laid out, the consultant presented different pictorials of different, what I'll refer to as concepts. The intent here is not to put together a development plan. This is to develop a concept, to identify a concept that we would like them to provide us with market data in relations to what we're looking for. So if we're looking for example, an orchard, what's involved in that? What's your investment in it? What's your return out of it? If you're putting in senior homes, what's your, how do you go about it? What can you expect from it? Things of that nature. So, there's not at the end of this a plan that we then take to the public and say, here's what we're trying to do and we'd like you to vote on it. That doesn't come until after and the other really significant part of this plan is it gives us a sense, and it should give us direction in terms of how we start. What we don't want to do is have a plan where it costs us $10 million to take the first step. And if we don't have $10 million, we never take the first step. So it really, one, entails the entire property, and there's opportunities. It identifies the opportunities so that we can start this without a significant heavy investment, and we can work toward where we need to go. So it's something that'll take us into the future for the entire property, and we define what we want, when we want it, where we want it. But it tells us this from a study standpoint, this would be a good place for this for these reasons. This would be a good place for, a boutique hotel or a coffee shop or a brewery or this, and for these reasons. And then you can go after, we can at that point in time define and go after who we want and kind of put out an RFP or whatever we want to do to bring in options that we want versus having somebody come to us and saying, here's what we'd like to do on your property. So that's the intent, and I explain that only because it does seem like folks are having some difficulty understanding that at the end of this process, we're not going to go out to bid or do anything along those lines. This is a plan for us to get started and go forward on this. Any questions? Those are the primary items that are. There's a couple of other things that I just wanted to mention from my perspective. Revaluation, at this point in time, we have a proposed mill rate, so people are able to more or less get an idea of what their taxes are, and now we've had an opportunity to kind of look at it. It's pretty significant, and there's people who will be very, very happy, and there's people who will be not so happy in terms of what it is, but it's rather significant. So we continue to look at opportunities and options in order to mitigate, in some way soften for those people who are really impacted the most. And we've been limited in terms of what we can do. It's frustrating from my personal perspective in the sense of this is not something that the town has control over. And, it comes at a time so people, like if the budget goes through as it's been proposed, there's some people whose increase will obviously be more than that. And, but the budget is going to be just a small portion of that more. So it's not as if we had a 2%, 3% less budget that their tax rate would go substantially down because the real increase is related to the revaluation. So it's just, it's an unfortunate kind of a result of what that whole process entails. But with that being the case, and we're also going to try to, as much as possible, let our seniors, our veterans, our disabled, who we have tax abatement programs for, make sure that people who qualify for these actually take advantage of them. We've actually done a list to see who's already taken advantage, done a list to see who's mostly impacted, to see and make sure that those people understand that there is an option and there is some opportunity to do something. We'll try to do as much as we can from that perspective. From a budget standpoint, there's I just wanted to bring up that something that might be a little bit of a different wrinkle this year in terms of preliminary budget meeting that's run by the Board of Finance is that I may ask the Board of Selectmen at one of our special meetings that we're having prior to that to consider any other changes that we might want to recommend to the Board of Finance. So ordinarily that's not done, from what I understand, but I'm considering it with the board to see, and I don't, the truth of it is after looking at it over and over and over and again with Tony, it's not as if there's a lot, it would require sacrifice. It's really what it boils down to. It would require sacrifice. There's things that we would have to do without, so to speak, particularly from the town perspective. But nonetheless, we're looking at it, and that might be, as a result of looking at it, we might come up with something. I wanted to make sure the board was aware of that, so if you have any
How does
questions
that
on
work
that.
procedurally?
We would.
Sorry, Susan.
No, it's a question we asked. It's a good question, actually, Beth. Obviously, the board meets. It's a special meeting for us at that
Next
time.
Thursday, we have the preliminary budget hearing.
At
And-
7:30, but they would meet ahead of time.
We
I
would
got
probably meet
it.
ahead of time and
That explains it, thank you.
and set up and identify exactly what it is we'd like to recommend. And as part of my opening of the meeting, I would then, at that point in time, indicate to the board that we would like to make a suggestion for their consideration, a recommendation for their consideration as we move forward. So, and that's, if it happens, we'll see exactly what we can do, but just a different wrinkle, and just, I feel at this point it's important that we at least consider it.
Any questions for Mika?
Question for you. Has there been any discussion about altering the fees at the transfer station?
Yes.
Yes.
Fees, not only the fees, but also the schedule.
The hours?
Yeah.
Correct.
Hours.
I was
Yeah.
gonna ask you about the
Fees and the
hours.
schedule. Actually, it's interesting because in addition to us having our discussions internally, what we felt is that we didn't need to specify that as part of the overall budget process per se. We feel, because we can take that up at any time.
Sure.
And the plan is to take it up in the near term and identify exactly what we can do. But both of those are very much under consideration. Particularly since where it does have a budget impact, if we can free up time, if we close the transfer station one day a week, we have two bodies
That can
during
do
the
other-
week that can help with landscaping, can help Public Works, which could save us in terms of part-time and/or full-time help. So it does have a budget impact from that perspective. The savings we do by closing it, not substantial, to significant enough to say we got to do that, we got to do it quick. But the other opportunities that exist, we are looking at that, and we're going to present that. I'll bring that in front of the board.
Thank you.
Any
And the
other-
fees is the other thing, Javier, just so you know, because we've talked about everything from increasing or starting fees for different things. I think, what
Right.
is it, like bulk?
Updating fees that we've set that maybe are not keeping pace with what we pay.
Yeah, it was a solid waste, right?
Right. Bulky waste or the demo, or some call it different things. There's an MSW,
Yeah.
which is the municipal solid waste. There's a brush, is another one that we have to revisit.
And we're looking at anything from requiring payment for a permit on an annual basis to what you pay to dump different items. Some towns have gone to, you have to, and the only thing we accept is trash in a particular type of bag, and you buy those bags in different area, different locations, and you have to bring your garbage in those bags. So you're picking up the dollars associated with the sale of the bags.
Got it.
There's different ideas. I'm working with SCROG now. SCROG got a grant with a company to fund a company who will come in and do a full transfer station assessment. And we've signed on to that. So we've asked them if we could be a part of that assessment, and they'll come in and they'll give us a lot of the answers that we're looking for. In other words, depending on who you ask is who you get, is what the busiest day is, and we can get some, like a third party to really come in and make those types of assessments and make decisions based on the information that they give us.
Thank you.
Never let it be said that garbage is not interesting.
You're right.
It is interesting. Okay.
So,
Other questions for Mika? Okay. Other liaison reports?
I'd just like to invite everybody to opening day on May 3rd here. We're going to hold it, the league, on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. I know Mika will be there.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
If
It's a fun
everybody's
day.
around, you're more than welcome to jump. I also mentioned it to Beth,
Yeah.
because Beth
But
is.
yeah, but she wears the
Shirt.
Yankee.
She was
usually wears
always,
the
she's
Yankee
always
jacket.
there, probably.
Very nice.
That means I got to find Red Sox gear if she's going to wear Yankee
But it's a
jacket.
wonderful event, wonderful community event. Okay, the fire department will be
I
doing
can
all
still
the
fit
cooking
in Steven's
and
shirt. That's
and
the
everything
best
else.
part.
So it's
Very
gonna be,
nice.
it's gonna be good, so.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Dwight.
Thank you. All right, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Have a wonderful holiday, everybody.
Thanks,
You
everybody.
too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.